I couldn't wait to get home to the book. As a naughty, rebellious girl in the throes of puberty, I needed help, and it seemed to come from the pages of Little Women. What did it mean to be a woman, anyway? Should I do as my parents suggested and aim at being pretty and popular and having my pick of desirable men? Should I become a woman whose identity was a wife and mother as my mother had? Should I be some man's little woman? Or should I strike out like Jo March and have great adventures and live alone in a house I paid for and risk being lonely? With the character of Jo March, Louisa May Alcott gave words to the dialogue between woman as sexual domestic creature and woman as successful professional. How can a woman avoid the trap of dependence and still have family satisfactions? How can she enjoy the rich satisfactions of good work and earning money without missing out on a domestic life? Little Women seemed like a guide through this morass of feminine questions, many of which I could not articulate in those days. Last summer, decades after my first trip to Orchard House, after a life that has only imperfectly answered the questions I had as a girl, I sat and watched as crowds of young girls walked up the path to the pretty brown house where Alcott wrote her masterpiece. Now lovingly restored and under the directorship of Jan Turnquist, a woman so in tune with Louisa May Alcott that she will frequently dress in the clothes Louisa would have worn and act out her heroine, Orchard House is backed by a stand of trees and sits near the Lexington Road about a mile away from the center of Concord. Walden Pond, where the Alcotts' friend and teacher Henry David Thoreau built his famous hut, is another mile on through the trees. The White House where their friend Ralph Waldo Emerson lived with his family and ran a brilliant rotating literary salon is down the road in the other direction. The thousands of women who visit Orchard House each year seem to be looking for guidance. Many of them have read Little Women. Some of them have only seen one of the 3 excellent movies made of the book that star, in chronological order, Katharine Hepburn, June Allison, and Winona Ryder, but they are there for the same reasons. The house gets 35,000 visitors a year. They patiently listen as local guides begin in the Alcotts' dark kitchen with its soapstone sink and wood stove, where Abba Alcott and her daughters did the cooking and washing with water from the well. They troop into the small dining room with a cupboard filled with Abba's green and white May family china. Fiction and fact are overlaid in this small room, where the Alcotts ate their vegetarian meals, and the fictional Marches also ate meals. The March meals were spare, but conventional. There was no meat because they were poor. The Alcott meals often consisted of graham meal and apples. Meat was not just expensive. It was one of Bronson Alcott's many personal devils. Although Louisa May Alcott set her story in Orchard House, and the rooms coincide with the scenes with Little Women, the actual events of her teenage years occurred in a different house, a yellow clapboard place called The Wayside, 100 yards down the road, where the Alcott family lived when the sisters were growing up. That house, in which the young Louisa experienced her actual adolescence, is more rarely visited than Orchard House. It is run by the National Park Service and is closed 3 days a week. By the time the Alcotts moved into Orchard House in 1858, Louisa was 26, her beloved sister Lizzie was dead, and her older sister Anna was engaged to John Pratt. The merging of real and fictional during the Orchard House tour heightens the sense that it is a kind of spiritual journey. Visitors aren't there to see the real place where the Alcott sisters came of age. If they were, they would walk down the street to the Wayside. They are there to visit the fictional sisters who lived and thrived and laughed and cried in Louisa May Alcott's imagined Orchard House. They chuckle when the guide points out Jo's mood pillow, a horsehair rectangle which was horizontal when the fictional Jo felt like talking, and vertical when she was best left alone. The tour guide usually explains that the March family hung a curtain between the parlor and the living room for Jo's theatrical productions. The audience sat in the front parlor. The actors and actresses, the March sisters, could use the back stairs for costume changes. The Alcott sisters never used the Orchard House parlor for their theatrical performances. The March sisters did. The visiting young women and their parents, classmates,